From the News Channel 5 Network, this is SportsLine.
Hey there, SportsLine on your television. Steve Lehman here with you. Glad you are here with us on this Tuesday night on News Channel 5 Plus. We're going to talk football tonight. It is that time of year. We can talk about the Titans off to a 1-3 start. We can talk Tennessee 2-2, but much improved in year two under Butch Jones, and with a critical game this weekend against Florida that really can kind of shape the rest of their season in terms of, can this be a team that really takes the next step to make it to a bowl game, or are they going to be right there on the cusp again at 5-7 type of a year? Vanderbilt off to a very slow start in their own right. Quarterback issues there. Patton Robinette still trying to come back from a concussion. What's the status there? Do you think Derek Mason has a shot at turning the corner this year with this team? Interested on your thoughts on that as well. Even Middle Tennessee on top in Conference USA. Not many people expected that to happen when they joined the league last year. If you're a Blue Raiders fan out there, how do you feel about the job Rick Stockstill and the boys have done so far, jumping on top in Conference USA? We can also talk about the massive weekend in the SEC. Everywhere you look, there are top 10, top 15 showdowns in the SEC this weekend. You don't have to go back very far to know that on this weekend, or the weekend that they played, Florida-Tennessee was the marquee game. The marquee game on the schedule. It's not even the marquee game on the SEC network this weekend. That's how good the SEC slate is. It is a ridiculous Saturday of games. Just in the state of Mississippi, you've got Alabama, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M, Mississippi State. That's just in one state. You got some really good games on Saturday. They're going to tell us a lot about where these teams stand in the SEC. And you got some games elsewhere in the Big Ten. Probably the two best teams are facing off, with Wisconsin traveling to Michigan State. Got Oregon facing an unbeaten in Arizona on Thursday night, actually. So you've got some really good games this weekend. Oklahoma, TCU on Saturday night. Also, we're getting to that time of year. We're just about to go into October. Calendar flips tomorrow, where people are really going to start talking about the college football playoff. From what you've seen so far, not looking at the rankings, not looking at how it was projected at the start of the season, who would you put in the college football playoff if the season ended after 1 month? Based off of the knowledge we have today, who would be in your playoff? I'm curious tonight. 737-7767. And part of the reason I asked that is because coming into the year, Florida State, obviously the defending national champion, Jameis Winston is back. Noles have a lot of talent there. They were the preseason #1 pick. But as I watch Florida State through the first month of the season, I hardly see the #1 team in the country. In fact, I'm not sure I see a top 10 team based off of the way they have played on the field. They struggled mightily with Oklahoma State in the opener. They had to squeak past Clemson in overtime at home, although that was without Jameis Winston because of his own shenanigans. And they didn't look very good last weekend at NC State. Ultimately ended up winning 56-41 or whatever it was. But that was not an impressive performance by Florida State. Still the #1 team in the country, still the defending national champion. But who would you have based off of their performance on the field alone? To me, I think the best teams so far, based off of what they've done, are Oklahoma, Oregon, I'm going to say Alabama right now, but really it's whoever emerges from the SEC. And I think that team will ultimately be the best team, the number one team in the 4-team playoff. But Oklahoma, Oregon, the SEC champion, which for the moment I'm going to say Alabama just because they are the highest ranked team out there, although lots of questions there. And I really struggle with the 4th pick right now. A lot of people have it as Florida State, and certainly I understand why, and they might very well be there at the end of the year. But from what I've seen from the ACC, and from what I've seen in particular of Florida State, I don't necessarily see a team that has played its way into the top 4 right now. The Big Ten has really struggled in the first half of the season. Could a Michigan State or Wisconsin get back up after early season non-conference losses to quality teams and put themselves back in the discussion? One of them's all but going to be eliminated Saturday night when they play in East Lansing. Is there someone else out there? Or does a second SEC team pop up? And I think there's a real shot of that, especially if someone slips up. Now, if Florida State goes unbeaten, it's hard to imagine they don't get a shot. They'll have the shot if they go unbeaten. But let's say Florida State slips up somewhere. I think it's totally possible the Noles get shut out then, just like a Big Ten team could get shut out. And then do you have a second team from the SEC? A second team from the SEC West, perhaps? So who's your 4 right now? At the moment, I'm going to say Alabama and Florida State, only because I do think Florida State's going to end up the season unbeaten. But I could certainly see another SEC team there. And if you really press me on what they've done so far on the field, just what they've done so far on the field, I think I'd put Texas A&M in. Alabama, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Oregon. I think those are the 4 most proven teams, if you want to say that, to this point. But this can get some great debate going. I'd love to hear your thoughts. 737-7767. And your thoughts on the local teams right now. How they're doing, college football or the Titans. Want to hear from you tonight. Call us up and join us on the program. Andrew, who do we have on? All right. Philip, good evening. You'll start us off on SportsLine.
Well, I can't give you 4, and I don't want to give you 4. Just like I don't want to hear about who the next Heisman Trophy winner is. We need to let this thing play out. It needs to be conference champions. I don't care if Alabama goes undefeated, or forget I said Alabama. I don't care if a team goes undefeated. If they go to their conference championship game and they lose, the victor of that game is in the playoffs. It needs to be like big boy football, and let's get it on. And I realize we got 5 conferences, maybe 6, I don't know. But I'm pretty sure we got the big 5. Somebody's going to have to figure out who that 5th one is that doesn't make it. But, sorry, hate it, they're the ones that designed it. No way should there be 2 SEC teams in this thing. No way should there be 2 AC. No way should there be 2 teams from any conference in this playoff scenario. You have got to win your conference or you go home. That's how we roll. It's basically Major League Baseball a long time ago when we had NL East and West, American League East and West. And I don't care if you won 100 baseball games that year. If you didn't win that deal, you don't go to the World Series. Sorry. If somebody beats you in the playoffs, you're out.
Well, right. And, Philip, we appreciate the call. I think there are a lot of people who are on that bandwagon that say you don't want multiple teams from the conference in, or that these conference championship games, which they all have them now, except for the Big 12, everyone else has a conference championship game. is essentially a de facto playoff game. I think that's a pretty fair argument, frankly, that those games almost serve as quarterfinals to the semifinals. That being said, you're going to have some interesting cases this year. You got Michigan State and Wisconsin this weekend. For my money, that's going to be the Big Ten championship game in December. Coming up next weekend, you have Oregon at UCLA. I think that's going to be the Pac-12 championship game in December. So you have these games that are possible rematches down the road in the championship game. So ultimately, when you're talking about a body of work that is only 12 or 13 games long, what makes the championship game so much more weighted in terms of the entire body of work? I understand within the conference, it's a championship game, but the playoff isn't about the championship games. It's about your season-long body of work. And for that, do these games this weekend in East Lansing or next weekend in LA, do they mean nothing? Because ultimately, if you lose that game, win the rest of them, do what you're supposed to, and get to the championship game, and you win that one, you're probably into the playoffs. Does the losing team at the championship game get credit if they win this week or next week and go unbeaten in the regular season, but then lose that week? We will find out. It will be interesting to see how much they weight conference championships, how much they weight what you do and when you do it throughout the season. Michigan State's another good example there. I think Michigan State is the cream of the crop in the Big Ten Conference, which has been bad this year. No question about that. But for 3 quarters, Michigan State played Oregon toe-to-toe on their home field in Oregon before it got away from them there in the fourth quarter. That's a tough loss for Sparty. But if they come back from week 2 and run the table and win the Big Ten championship, are they going to get credit for how they played later in the season? Or, as coaches always say, that you got better, you got hot, you became really good late in the year, dangerous team late in the year? Or is the fact that the Big Ten wasn't a very good conference and their shot out of the league at Oregon didn't go so well? We don't know, really. Yeah. Trying to figure out the criteria and what this selection committee is going to really base their moves on is a difficult proposition. Let's go to Kevin. Kevin, good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Doing well.
I just wanted to make a comment. You know, a lot of people in the SEC seem to believe that Alabama is going to be that team that's going to represent the Southeastern Conference in that Final Four playoff format. I just wanted to remind everybody, has anybody looked at the Texas A&M Aggies this year? They are a monster. They are a team to be reckoned with. I'm a Tennessee Volunteer. I'm not going to deny it, but I'm going to tell you something. I haven't seen a team play quite like Texas A&M since Alabama a couple of years back, and I'm not going to deny the fact that I believe that Oklahoma is the best team in the nation. I think that Florida State, they're going to get coming what they've got coming to them later on down the season, but I think that Oklahoma by far is probably the best team in the nation. I'm looking at Oklahoma. I'm looking at Texas A&M. I'm looking at Oregon, and I agree along with Michigan State. I think Michigan State is one of those teams that should be considered in that mix as well.
Well, I think what has to happen for that, obviously, Kevin, is they're going to have to win this weekend. They're going to have to run the table in the Big Ten to give themselves a shot. And probably in the Big Ten this year, you're relying on one of those other conferences to slip up. The ACC is not real strong top to bottom. So if Florida State slips up, maybe you sneak in that situation. And I agree with you, Kevin. I think Texas A&M at this point has probably the most impressive win of any of those SEC teams by going into South Carolina and winning the way they did in the first week of the season. The only other one that really jumps out at me, frankly, is what Mississippi State did at LSU a couple weeks ago. And there's another team nobody's really talking about that is unbeaten with a great road win and a chance to do something this weekend against A&M. So I think that'll be a very intriguing game there. But that's the thing about the SEC is, in some ways, you extend this out to 8 or 10 teams when you just talk about the SEC, because that's practically a playoff in and of itself. Well, Kevin, we appreciate the call. Good stuff tonight. We need to take our break. We're running behind a little bit, but still want to hear from you. Who would you put in your 4-team college football playoff at the quarter pole, or the, I guess it's more like the third point of the season? Quarter pole in the NFL, about a third of the way through of the college football season. Who would you have in your 4-team playoff based off of what they've done on the field right now? Want to hear about that. Also want to hear your thoughts on the Titans or any of the local college teams as well. We're talking football tonight. It's your chance to get on the program. 737-7767 is the number. Phone line's wide open for you, and we'll get to those calls after this.